Welcome to a world of darkness and fear. A place where the shadows whisper and every creak in the night could be something sinister lurking just beyond your sight. Are you brave enough to journey with me into the heart of terror? Tonight we delve into true scary stories that will haunt your dreams. These aren't just campfire tales meant to elicit a quick chill. These are real encounters with the unknown, whispered from trembling lips and etched in the minds of those who live to tell the tale. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and prepare yourself. The nightmare is about to begin. Our first story takes us to a dilapidated Victorian mansion perched atop a windswept hill. Locals whisper of its dark history, of a family torn apart by tragedy, and a malevolent presence that lingers within its decaying walls. They say the house is never truly empty. Footsteps echo in the dead of night, disembodied whispers send shivers down your spine, and cold spots chill you to the bone. One fateful night, a group of teenagers, fueled by teenage bravado and morbid curiosity, decided to explore the abandoned house. They sought thrills, a brush with the unknown, but what they found was far more terrifying than anything they could have imagined. As they stepped across the threshold, the air grew heavy, thick with a palpable sense of dread. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of their own ragged breaths. They wandered through darkened hallways, their flashlights cutting through the gloom, illuminating dust-covered furniture and peeling wallpaper. The house seemed to watch them, its emptiness filled with unseen eyes. Then, the noises started. Soft at first, a gentle tapping on the floor above them. They paused, listening intently, their hearts pounding in their chests. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps. Panic set in. They were not alone. They ran, stumbling through the darkness, desperate to escape the presence that stalked them. But the house seemed to twist and turn, its hallways shifting and changing, leading them further into its depths. One by one, the teenagers disappeared, their screams swallowed by the darkness. Only one managed to escape, fleeing into the night, forever scarred by the horrors he had witnessed. Our next story delves into the unsettling realm of mirrors, those reflective surfaces that have long been shrouded in superstition. They say mirrors are portals, windows into other dimensions, and sometimes, what we see reflected back at us is not our own. A young woman named Sarah moved into a charming, antique-filled apartment, unaware of the chilling secret hidden within its walls. An ornate, full-length mirror stood in the corner of her bedroom, its silvered surface reflecting her image back at her with unsettling clarity. At first, Sarah dismissed the strange occurrences as figments of her imagination. A flicker of movement in the mirror's reflection, a cold spot that followed her around the room, the feeling of being watched, even when she was alone. But as the days turned into nights, the activity intensified. One evening, as Sarah was brushing her hair, she caught a glimpse of a figure standing behind her in the mirror's reflection. It was a tall, shadowy figure with piercing eyes that seemed to burn into her soul. Sarah whirled around, her heart pounding in her chest, but the room was empty. She tried to rationalize what she had seen, telling herself it was just a trick of the light, but deep down, a primal fear began to take root in her heart. Night after night, the figure in the mirror grew bolder, its features becoming clearer, its presence more menacing. It would stand there, watching her every move, a sinister grin spreading across its face. Sarah's sleep was plagued by nightmares, her waking hours consumed by terror. She felt an overwhelming sense of dread, a feeling that something evil was closing in on her. One morning, Sarah's neighbors found her lifeless body lying on the bedroom floor, her eyes wide with terror, her gaze fixed on the antique mirror in the corner. Our next tale takes us on a chilling journey into the heart of paranoia, where the line between reality and delusion blurs, and the feeling of being watched becomes an inescapable nightmare. Emily, a college student living alone in a bustling city, began to notice unsettling signs that something was amiss. At first, they were subtle, easily dismissed as coincidence, or her imagination playing tricks on her. Objects moved around her apartment, lights flickered, and she could have sworn she heard whispers coming from the shadows. But as the days turned into weeks, the incidents grew bolder, more frequent. She would find her belongings tampered with, her mail opened, her personal space violated. Fear gnawed at the edges of her mind, whispering that she was not alone. Emily started seeing a shadowy figure lurking at the edge of her vision, always just out of sight. It seemed to follow her wherever she went, its presence a constant threat. She tried to confide in her friends, but they dismissed her concerns, attributing her fears to stress or fatigue. But Emily knew the truth. Someone or something was stalking her, toying with her, driving her slowly to the brink of madness. The stalking escalated, becoming more brazen, more terrifying. Emily's once safe haven had transformed into a prison of fear. She was trapped, hunted by an unseen entity that seemed to exist just beyond the veil of reality. One stormy night, Emily reached her breaking point. As thunder roared and lightning illuminated the sky, she saw the figure standing at the foot of her bed, its eyes glowing with malevolent intent. Emily screamed, a primal scream of terror that echoed through the empty apartment. And then silence. Dolls. Those seemingly innocuous playthings that have captivated children and collectors alike for centuries. But what happens when a doll becomes a vessel for something dark? Something sinister that defies explanation? Our next story takes us into the unsettling world of the supernatural, where an antique porcelain doll becomes the harbinger of terror for a young family. It all began innocently enough. The Lawson family, while browsing an antique shop, stumbled upon a beautiful porcelain doll with rosy cheeks, piercing blue eyes, and a delicate lace dress. They decided to buy the doll for their daughter, Lily, unaware of the evil that lurked within its painted smile. From the moment Lily laid eyes on the doll, she was captivated. She named her Anya, and refused to let her out of her sight. At first, everything seemed normal, but soon, strange and unsettling events began to plague the Lawson household. Lily's parents would hear whispers coming from her room at night, soft, childlike whispers that sent shivers down their spines. They dismissed it as their daughter talking in her sleep, but deep down, a seed of doubt was planted. One evening, Lily's father, John, walked past her room and noticed the doll's head turning to follow him. He stopped, his heart pounding in his chest, but when he looked again, the doll was back in its original position. He tried to shake off the unease, but he couldn't ignore the growing feeling that something was terribly wrong. As the days passed, the doll's behavior grew more erratic. It would disappear from Lily's room, only to reappear in the most unexpected places, sitting at the kitchen table, staring out the window, its cold, lifeless eyes seeming to follow their every move. One night, Lily's mother, Sarah, woke to the sound of her daughter screaming. She rushed into Lily's room to find her daughter cowering in the corner, her eyes wide with terror, pointing a trembling finger at the porcelain doll sitting on the bed. "Mommy!" Lily cried. "Anya's alive!" Our final story tonight is not for the faint of heart. It is a tale that delves into the darkest corners of our minds, where fear takes on a life of its own, and the monsters under the bed become all too real. This is the story of David, a young man plagued by a terrifying condition known as sleep paralysis. It started subtly, a feeling of being held down, unable to move or speak as he drifted off to sleep. He would open his eyes, but his body refused to respond, trapped in a terrifying state between wakefulness and sleep. At first, David dismissed it as stress, a trick of his imagination. But as the episodes grew more frequent, more intense, he began to realize that something far more sinister was at play. During these episodes, David would experience terrifying hallucinations. He would see shadowy figures lurking in his room, their eyes glowing with malevolent intent. He would feel a crushing weight on his chest, making it impossible to breathe, and hear voices whispering his name, taunting him, threatening to drag him into the darkness. David became terrified of falling asleep. He knew that as soon as he closed his eyes, he would be plunged back into that waking nightmare at the mercy of whatever entities lurked in the shadows of his mind. Desperate for help, David sought medical advice, but doctors could find no explanation for his condition. They offered him medication therapy, but nothing seemed to work. The night terrors continued, each episode more terrifying than the last. One night, as David lay in bed, paralyzed by fear, he saw the most terrifying hallucination yet. A tall, skeletal figure with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp claws emerged from the shadows of his room. It lunged at him, its skeletal fingers reaching for his throat, its voice a guttural growl that seemed to shake the very foundations of his sanity. David never woke up. These stories are not just tales, but real experiences that people have lived through. Experiences that have left them forever changed, haunted by the unknown, their lives irrevocably touched by the darkness that lurks at the edges of our reality. As you turn off your lights tonight and close your eyes, remember the stories we've shared. Remember that the line between our world and the supernatural is thin, And sometimes the things that go bump in the night are all too real. Sleep tight if you can. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling stories.